Here the bachi khadi.
Is this Pashto or?
Yes.
Okay.
Now come inshallah Taliban popular should we learn Pashto.
خلاص inshallah. When they come here.
قدامك.
السلام عليكم. السلام. خلاص. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. We usually take this time before Salat al-Jum'ah to answer any questions that we receive from the community, and I like to give preference to those who are present before I answer any other questions. And I always get questions, alhamdulillah, so I have plenty to answer. But if anyone has any questions, inshallah, we'll try to address them now. Okay. The question I received was, what do I do if I make a mistake while following the Imam? So maybe the Imam goes into ruku' and I go into sajda, or the Imam comes up and he sits down for the jalsa tashahhud, and then I stand up. What am I supposed to do? The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam said that the Imam has been placed to be followed. جُعِلَ الْإِمَامُ كَيْ يَتَّبَعُ. Yani that the Imam has been placed so that he is followed. Whatever the Imam does, we as the ma'moom, as the muqtadi, we have to follow the Imam and complete whatever it is that he does and whatever it is that he says. This is important from a few angles, and one of them is that whatever position the Imam is in, even if I'm mistaken, I have to go to the position of the Imam. And if I miss the position, so for example, if the Imam, he goes into ruku' and I go into sajda, thinking that the Imam is going into sajda, then the Imam comes back up and I stand up. So I, as an individual, I miss the entire ruku'. So this is one situation. If I miss a rukun, if I miss a pillar of the prayer, and the pillar of the prayer are all of the positions. So standing, bowing, sajda, sitting, these are all pillars of the prayer. If I miss any of those, I complete the prayer with the Imam, but then I stand up and I have to complete another rak'ah, and after I finish the rak'ah, I do 2 sajdas. These 2 sajdas are called? Does anyone know? Sajdat al-sahw. If I catch the Imam, for example, if I go into sajda and the Imam goes into ruku' and I realize that the Imam is in ruku' and I stand up. If I catch him, I finish the prayer with the Imam. I do taslim, and after taslim I do sajdat sahw. I don't do it outside of the Imam. Why? Because I have to follow him until the end of the prayer. And this is something that is really important. So the sajda sahw happens after the prayer with the Imam is complete, because I have to complete the prayer with the Imam. The only situations where I would not complete prayer with the Imam is if I, for example, remembered I didn't have wudu during prayer, or if I broke my wudu during prayer. At that point, it's okay for me to leave, or not just okay, I'm supposed to leave the prayer. At that point, go make wudu, and then I join again. And from the point I join, that will be the first rak'ah for me. So for the Imam, if he's in the 3rd rak'ah, for example, for me, this will be rak'ah number 1. There is some khilaf on this, but in general, just for ease, this would be considered the first rak'ah for me, and I would complete the prayer appropriately. The other question I received is, in general, again, about looking and dealing with other people's prayers. If someone's aura shows during the prayer, so sometimes what happens is that, and this happens with the men a lot, is where their pants will be low and then it'll hang, and then you'll be able to see their behind during the prayer. If this is done purposely, right, then the prayer is invalid. So this is something that we all need to be aware of. If it is done by accident, the prayer is still valid, but there is a shortcoming in the prayer. We have to make sure that we are fully covered through the entirety of the prayer. And what does fully covered mean? Even if I'm wearing my undergarment, and even if my undergarment is coming and my pant falls, the undergarment is still covering my skin, right? The undergarment is still covering my skin, and that area can't be exposed. So we should try to make sure and do our level best to make sure that all of our body, our entirety is covered. Because the difference between the prayer of the men and the prayer of the women in clothing is that men, it's permissible for them to wear form-fitting clothing. It's permissible for them to wear form-fitting clothing, but for women it is not. And why? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says very clearly in the ayat, when He says, قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَبْغُضْنَ مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ, right? This is the verse. But for women, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنَاتِ يَبْغُضْنَ مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِنَّ وَيَحْفَظُونَ فُرُوجَهُنَّ وَلَا يُبْدِينَ زِينَتُهُنَّ. This addition of don't show what is apparent from your beauty, is this given to men? No, this order is not given to men. Men are only given one order. Their order is to lower their gaze. And lowering their gaze is a metaphor, right? It doesn't mean that every time we see a woman we look down, right? That's not what it actually means. It means that we should look away, lower our gaze, and that is really something that we do in our hearts, right? To make sure that we are protecting what we are looking at. That's what this is kinaya for. This is a metaphor for that. And He says the same thing for women, with the addition that they have to hide their beauty, which is apparent. And there's an agreement amongst the scholars. What is the apparent beauty? The face and the hands. And some of the scholars, they'll include the feet. So in general, this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deals with these two situations. And this is why you'll find for men, it is okay for them to wear form-fitting clothing. So like I said, as long as the skin is covered, it might not be ideal, and we have to make sure that whatever we're coming in with is appropriate, and that it doesn't bring unnecessary attention. It doesn't bring unnecessary attention to the person. And people have different body types. This is something that we also have to keep in mind. So now, for example, one of the new styles is the skinny jeans, right? They're very tight jeans that even men have started wearing now. For some people, it might be appropriate depending on their body style. If a person is extremely thin, it won't look as outlandish, it won't attract as much attention. But if somebody is larger and they wear the same type of jean, it's going to actually cause people to look and cause people to bring attention. And this enters into a different type of category, which is called libas shuhra. So what is the libas shuhra? Libas shuhra is basically outlandish clothing. Anything that will draw unnecessary attention to an individual. So for example, if I came in with a bright purple thobe, right? This is something that would attract everybody's attention, and they would kind of look like, what is the Imam wearing? This is strange. But even that is going to be culture specific, right? Even that is going to be in culture specific. So, but if, for example, if you go to places like Senegal or Gambia, they'll wear very bright colors. It's not strange in those places to wear these bright colors. Would it be okay over there? Yeah, absolutely. Why? Because I'm dressing the same way as everybody else is dressing. The problem would come into places like here in the United States where it wouldn't be as appropriate. You have much more muted colors when people go out, especially for men. This is when they go out and how they dress. So even if you look around, there's a lot of earthy tones, a lot of pastel tones. You won't find a lot of fluorescent colors that men wear or that men use to actually present themselves or dress themselves. Culture plays a big part, and it plays a big role in Islam. Inshallah, this is something that we can expand about and we can talk about. That's more of a legal theory discussion, more of an usuli discussion that has to do with urf muhkam, that the customs or the customary habits of the people play a role in guidelines of the Sharia. But bi'idhnillah, we'll talk about this in the future. Wallahu a'lam wa sallallahu ala khayri khalqin nabina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر
الله أكبر الله.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول أشهد أن محمدًا رسول حي على الصلاة. حي على حي على الفلاح. حي على الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. لا إله إلا الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم رب هذه الدعوة الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد، يقول الله عز وجل: الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا. That He is the one who created death and life to test those of you who will do the best deeds. And this is a verse that many of us take and apply to ourselves, which is something that is very important because all of us will surely die. But there's another message in this verse that is important for all of us to take away. And part of that message is that we will also face death in terms of our close ones, our relatives, our loved ones, our friends, and our colleagues. So how do we deal with those deaths when they face us? Because our test is our individual death. And when we pass, we will have to answer for our deeds. But how about when a close one of ours passes away? That is also part of our test. Because their test is now over. And how we react, how we deal with it, and how we respond is our test. Will we respond by showing maturity, by showing patience, by showing gratitude? Or will we respond by showing anger or expressing sadness in a way that is not permissible, or by being selfish? Many times we will use grief as a means to hurt others. Many times we will use grief as a means to justify everything that we are doing, without realizing that we are not the only ones that are facing that grief. We are not the only ones that are facing that sadness. We are not the only ones that are facing that hardship and difficulty. All of us have experienced death either directly or indirectly in some way, shape, or form. How did we react to it? When we heard or saw a brother or sister or parent or cousin or friend pass away, how did we respond? Was it something that we can look back on and be proud of? Or was it a way that was very selfish, was very conceited, that was very egotistical? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that He will test us with death. He will. How are we doing in our individual tests? And when we see an individual pass, how are we responding? Are we looking at that person's life and trying to take the lessons from it? Are we looking at that individual's life and seeing how we can make ourselves better and use it as a lesson and as a catalyst to better ourselves? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives us all of these lessons every single way in different forms and in different shapes. How are we utilizing those lessons? It is not an accident that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us to see and experience the things that we do. And one of the things that we see and one of the things that we experience surely is death. And when we are there, when we are attending the janazah, when we're going to the graveyard, what is our attitude and how are we supporting those that are around us? The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when he talks about the rights of the mu'min on another mu'min, from them is attending his janazah. And there is a spiritual benefit in this, which is the reward of attending the janazah. And there's a social element to this as well. When we go and we attend the janazah, we have to deal and speak to and face those individuals who have dealt with this death directly. What kind of support are we giving them? Because the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam also commands us and tells us to take part in two other occasions. And that occasion is the walima, is the wedding, and the second one is the aqiqah, and the birth of a child. And this should tell us and show us that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls us and tells us that we are ikhwa, that we are brothers, and that we take part in each other's happiness, and that we take part in each other's sadness. Showing empathy is one of the bases of a community. If I can't be sad with my brother, if I can't be sad with my sister, then I need to look at my own heart and see where my shortcomings are. Part of my happiness should be in seeing my Muslim brother and sister happy. And part of my sadness should be in me seeing them hurt. And walillahi alhamd, regardless of the disunity that we might claim and that we might experience, one thing that I can proudly say is that whenever we hear any Muslim in any part of the world, the first question isn't what madhab was he upon. The first question isn't where is he from. The first question isn't what color was his skin. The first reaction is that of sadness. And walillahi alhamd, it still shows us and it still tells me that the hearts of the Muslims bleed for each other today, and there is still a brotherhood that is there that we should be proud of, that we should proclaim, that we should share with others, that we do love each other. But just like brothers, sometimes we don't always show that love in the best way. And that is part of brotherhood. And death should only bring our brotherhood even closer. When we show that empathy, when we share stories about that brother or sister that passed, when we remember their legacy, when we think about them, it's an opportunity that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed me with and given me to remember and better myself. What if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had not allowed me to experience that death or that passing? What if I had not been given those lessons? What if I did not learn from them? I would be similar to those people who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed a seal on their hearts, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from being that person. Ameen. Every single moment of our lives are opportunities. And everything that we see, everything that we experience, including death, is a lesson and is a reminder if we allow it to be a reminder for us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from those individuals who learn from all of those lessons that are around us, and especially learn from the deaths of our brothers and sisters. وَأَقُولُ قَوْلِي هَذَا وَأَسْتَغْفِرُ اللَّهَ لِي وَلَكُمْ لِسَائِرِ الْمُسْلِمِينَ مِنْ كُلِّ ذَنْبٍ وَخَطِيئَةٍ إِنَّهُ هُوَ الْغَفُورُ الرَّحِيمُ. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. يقول الله عز وجل وذكر فإن ذكرى تنفع المؤمنين. And remind, for the reminder benefits the believer. And from these reminders are those that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses us with, and those that He gives us, and those that are gifts for us. And death, in its sadness, in its reality, it is a gift for us if we take it as a reminder, if we take it as a means of bettering our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And death is a cold reality. It is something that we will face. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a guide in His book to prepare for it. There are very few people. Just look at the number of people in the world today, and from those people Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and from that ummah He has chosen us as individuals, as His representatives. There is no greater blessing that an individual can have except to be chosen, being raised on this religion. Are we taking advantage of that blessing? Are we taking advantage of this ni'mah? Are we taking advantage of this gift? Because Islam truly is a gift. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us reminders through His book. He gives us reminders through our lives. And He gives us reminders through those around us. There are so many things that we can do to better ourselves. All it takes is just seeking and looking. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam tells us, أَحَبَّ الْأَعْمَالِ إِلَى اللَّهِ